Oh, thank you very much. Good day, whatever time you are meeting us. We are discussing a very interesting subject today. The title of our discussion is How to Survive Postgraduate Studies and to Excel in the Academia. I'm sure if you may have encountered, or you might be one of the postgraduate students, or in future you will decide to be one of the postgraduate students, either doing an honors degree, a master's degree, or even a doctoral degree. Now, the statistics that we have been exposed to actually highlight the fact that about 90% of people who enroll either for honors, a master's, or a doctoral degree find it very hard to complete their studies. Maybe 90% might sound like too hefty, too high a figure. It may even sound like an exaggeration. But the truth is that many students do not complete their studies. And you might just be wondering why. Maybe as somebody who wants to enroll, or you are already enrolled, you are facing struggles and you are wondering how you can make it beyond that hurdle. It's as if postgraduate studies are made to be so difficult that only a few people must go through and succeed, kind of. Now, I want us to look at some of the reasons why there is such a high dropout rate, why so many postgraduate students do not complete, and so that we can assist people. You know, my idea is to assist people, because I know the reason why you have enrolled is that you want to succeed, and every one of us wants to succeed. So why should you even encounter all these hurdles and all these obstacles? Because really your idea is to go beyond and achieve that which you want to achieve. So I've started a series where I would like to be sharing with particularly postgraduate students, just to say to them, maybe just to be that supporting hand when you need that help. So to begin with, in this series, we are going to look at the reasons for postgraduate failure. And then in our other videos, we are going to be looking at the different skill sets that you require. And we are going to go deeper into issues like proposal writing, in fact, starting from the identification of the topic and the titling, and then the identification of a problem, formulation of your problem statement, your research questions, your aims and your objectives, the rationale of your study, theoretical or philosophical framework, whichever conceptual framework, those issues will have to be dealt with. Issues of your literature review, because a lot of students don't seem to know what literature review is and what purpose it ought to serve. So we will have discussions in all those areas. And take note that some of the discussions will be taking place behind the veil of membership, because we have membership for this channel. So if you are not able to access some of the material through this open platform, it might be that some of the videos are accessible only to the members. So check out our membership so that you are not left out of these discussions. Right. Let's get straight into business, the business of the day, the reasons for the postgraduate failure. Now, let's look at the factors. There are three factors that I want us to think about, because they are very, very critical to a successful postgraduate study career. You've got the student as the first factor. Then we've got the study area that the student is maybe pursuing studies in. And then we have got the supervisor. I think all other factors, as I look at them, can be located within one of those three centers. Or yeah. First of all, the student. Um, it is the student who enrolls for the course. So it is the student who must do the work in order to have a successful completion and to excel in the work. So, that being the case, we want to ask ourselves quite a number of questions about the student. So before you even make that application to the university or college to say you want to undertake graduate studies, you must have considered yourself first and foremost. So the student can excel or be frustrated because of psychological preparedness or lack of psychological preparedness. So you must first be prepared psychologically for that course that you want to undertake. So the question will be, why do you want to pursue the course that you want to pursue? Why are you enrolling for postgraduate studies? Is it because you've got friends who have enrolled? Or as one gentleman once said to me, he likes, he wishes to be called, to be addressed with the title of doctor. So he says to me, I want that title. I want to be addressed as a doctor, but I don't have the time for the studies. And then I asked him, say, but so then how are you going to manage? How are you going to get the doctorate if you don't have the time to study for it? So first and foremost, we are saying you must know why you want to study, why you want to enroll. How is it going to help you? Is it just to pursue something that you've seen your friends pursue? Is it so that you can be given a title? Or is it because you love knowledge and you want to discover new knowledge and expand the frontiers of knowledge? Why are you enrolling? That lies at the heart of everything, the decision. So before you even make the decision, you must have made up your mind why you want to study. I remember one supervisor when I just completed my honors and I enrolled for a master's, and I submitted some work for review by him. And one of the issues that he said to me very frankly, without really mincing his words, he said to me, remember, you already have an undergraduate degree, you have an honors degree, you can use those to work. We've got so many people who are working out there on the strength of those qualifications. So if you don't have time for postgraduate studies, you might as well go back and work in the field there, in the industry. They would require your services. In fact, you can excel and make yourself a lot of money if you go out there. That's what he said very candidly. And it sounded a little bit roughish on the side, but eventually I understood what he meant. So the point I'm trying to underscore is that as a student, you must know why you want to enroll. So it's like when you take up this course, this postgraduate course. There was a certain gentleman, a professor that I once worked with, who would say to me when I was still, in my taking up my studies, he said, enrolling for postgraduate studies is like marrying another spouse. He said to me, go into the jewelry shop, buy a ring and put it on the finger and tell yourself you have just gotten married, because your life is literally going to revolve around that new relationship. That's very, very important. So I don't mean to scare you, but I'm just trying to say if you don't have time for it, don't go for it, because it will frustrate you. It will give you sleepless nights. It will take away your peace if you are not careful. So it must really be something that you love, something that you cherish, something that you want to do so that you can benefit from it. Is that understood? So we are saying the student must be psychologically prepared, and the student must be financially prepared as well. Do you have the money? Because it will require a lot from you in terms of budgetary considerations. So there is psychological preparedness, there is financial preparedness, maybe preparedness within the relationship cycles, your family. How are you going to accommodate your family? You could be a spouse, a husband, or a wife. Have you spoken to your spouse about the course? Because you see, sometimes it can cause a strain when one of the members, one of the couple members is spending time on their studies and they seem to be ignoring the other person. That's very, very important to always think about. So you must take note of that. So it's your psychological preparedness, it is your financial preparedness, it is preparedness within the context of your family, and then skills. There are certain skills that you require. I have worked with postgraduate students whose computer literacy skills were so appalling. The person can't use the computer. They don't understand how to use a simple application like the word application, a word processor, like you'd have your MS Word and so on. So if you want to enroll for postgraduate studies, I encourage you to enroll maybe just by the sideline for a computers training course so that you can learn basics of the MS Word, or your word processor, your spreadsheets, how to your database management if you're going to be using any of that all statistical issues, software to do with statistics, if you are going to need it, because there's nothing as frustrating as trying to complete the task and you cannot use those software applications. I often say a person who cannot use the word processor or spreadsheets in this day and age is actually illiterate. That person cannot read and write. There's no need to mince our words. It's like trying to do a doctoral thesis or a master's dissertation when you cannot write. How are you going to manage that? So you must understand that you need to to hone your skills in that area. Use of computers, computer literacy in this age, it's basic literacy. You must go into it. So you must know how to manipulate the word processor, things like tracking changes, things like how to accept or reject reviews, suggestions, and so on and so forth. Learn your MS Word, learn your word processor, if I can say that, your internet research skills, communicating by email, how to search for sources, you know, different methods, different skills, how this Boolean command works, so on and so forth. That's very important. So it's your psychological preparedness, it's your financial preparedness, relationship with family members, and then issues of computer literacy, as I have said. And then, that's basically where it begins. As far as the student is concerned, you must make sure that you have developed skills in that area. And then I spoke also about the issue of maybe the choice of study, the study area. What are you studying? What subject? What area of interest are you pursuing? You see, each student must know their capabilities and their strengths. For instance, if you are not a numbers person, you cannot then take up studies in an area where there's going to be need for you to be using numbers and doing calculations. There are people who are naturally numbers oriented. They do very well with their numbers. I'm giving an example. Others are scientists, they have that orientation. And there are others who have good narrative skills, good linguistic skills. You already know yourself. So enroll in the area, in the field where you are going to excel. And if maybe it's an area where you are already working, that could even work out for you, where you enroll in an area where, for instance, maybe you're already involved in that area of work. If it's law, for instance, you want to undertake a master's in law or a doctorate in law, it could be well if you are already working as a lawyer and maybe practicing in that field. It could be if you want to pursue studies in criminal procedure, then you could work well if you're already working within the area of criminal procedure. Or if it's family law or constitutional law, whichever area, if it's insolvency, you are already working with insolvency on a day-to-day basis. So you already have that skill. That's as far as the area of study is concerned. You must decide, and it must be one where you have some skills and some competencies and some acumen, natural acumen. Um, so your choice of the study area is very, very important, because if you choose a study area where you are not strong, or where you don't have that interest, your interest may wane in the course of time. And then when you lose interest, you no longer want to pursue that study. And then it falls by the wayside. And that's time wasted, by the way. And then let me come to the supervisor. Maybe I will link the supervisor with the institution that you choose, because these institutions are different. Universities operate differently. Now, let's talk first about the supervisor as a person. Um, you see, supervisors come in all different shapes and sizes. We have those that are naturally mean human beings, very unfriendly. So if you happen to have that kind of a supervisor, you will certainly have a tough time. Because you will not be able to complete anything if you are dealing with someone who's mean. Then we have those that are friendly and patient and are always willing to assist. Again, those are personality traits. If you happen to have that one allocated to you, then you will have a good time. They'll help you through. So it really matters which supervisor you get. Um, Unfortunately, we don't always have the liberty to choose which supervisors we want. And sometimes we don't even know beforehand the nature of the person that has been allocated to us. It's much better if we have chosen the supervisor ourselves. Sometimes we have not, so the relationship just has to work out. Otherwise, you'll be frustrated the whole of your life. Now, this is how supervisors can make your life easy or difficult, depending again on the institution. Because some institutions have got very good mechanisms and procedures for handling these matters, so that even if the supervisor is someone who is a bit on the unfriendly side, if there are sufficient and strong institutional structures, they may help you, because then you will be able to take advantage of what the supervisor, or rather what the institution offers you. Right. First and foremost, one thing that has been proved to work very well is the memorandum of understanding. As a student, you may find it very difficult, but let me tell you that if you want to succeed, just be frank and ask your supervisor to, just as the relationship begins, that you should have, or you should draw a memorandum of understanding. whereby you and the supervisor agree on the terms of work, your timelines, your turnaround periods, so that you know very well what the expectations of the supervisor are, and he or she knows what your expectations are. Because you see, when you have that kind of a relationship, it helps you in the sense that right from the beginning, you know what to expect from the supervisor, and the supervisor knows what to expect from you. Now, let me give an illustration so that you can understand what I'm trying to talk about. I have experienced or encountered situations, not personally, but through interactions with others, with students and with friends and so on, whereby, let me give you an example of a student who draws up a project proposal or a research proposal, maybe sometime in March or April, thereabout, and then they have an agreement with the supervisor. You know, it's that back and forth. The student sends the work, the supervisor corrects the work, and they have that interaction up to a point where, say, sometime in June, the supervisor says, "Oh yes, your research proposal is fine. Now you can go ahead and just start doing your research, and then you can start writing the research report itself." Then the students gets busy and starts the work. And then sometime in September, the student submits maybe draft chapter one. The supervisor reads through, maybe has one or two issues to correct, and then the student say, the supervisor says, "Oh, okay, now it's fine. Your chapter one is fine. You can now go to your second chapter." Maybe you find that the second chapter is dealing with, say, conceptual issues, and backgrounds, and so on and so forth. So the student gets busy, very excited that now chapter one has been bagged, it's in the bag, it's in the pocket now. The student is not thinking about chapter one anymore, because now everything is in place. Right. Does chapter two, submits chapter two, and the supervisor says, "Oh yeah, this one is fine. You can go ahead now. Go to chapter three." The student goes to chapter three, writes chapter three, and then submits. And then all of a sudden, the supervisor says, "Look, let's go back to chapter one." And then they go back to chapter one, and the supervisor starts questioning. Maybe he starts questioning the problem statement. He starts questioning the foundation of the study itself. And the supervisor is back now, spitting fire, criticizing the aims, the objectives. All of a sudden, the aims are not what they ought to be. They don't meet the criteria for aims, or the problem is not a problem. After all, you can talk about a litany of those challenges that are coming up straight into your face. You have spent months and months. You are now on chapter three or even chapter four. Maybe you were working on a five or a six chapter project. Now, if you are in chapter four and you are told that there's something wrong with chapter one, what does it mean? If you go and correct chapter one, you are going to adjust the research problem, the problem statement, or even the hypothesis, depending on how your research is structured. And then your aims, and then your methods. Hey, if you are going to have that kind of a problem, it means that your chapter two and your chapter three and your chapter four have become obsolete. Now you've got to start again. Now, can you imagine how frustrating it is when you spend months and months and you've got to revert to chapter one? All of a sudden, all the work that has been done in chapter two and three and four is no longer useful, because once you go and change the problem statement in chapter one, if you're going to go and change the objectives and the aims in chapter one, it goes without saying that chapter two and chapter three and maybe chapter four, whatever how you have written, is no longer valid, it's no longer useful, it's no longer of any use to anybody. So that becomes the problem. So you should be, that can only be cured when you have a very clear memorandum of understanding right from the beginning. So what then does it mean? Depending on the institution that you have chosen, some institutions will insist on a memorandum of understanding. Those institutions will have the memorandum of understanding written down. They will insist on a meeting between the student and the supervisor to iron out any questions before the commencement of a relationship so that they understand each other. They know what is expected between the two of them, and they can work on it. Because you see, I don't want to sound like I'm being negative and so on, but are you aware that some people can be bullies and prevent you from actually succeeding? I know of so many supervisors who have prevented students from graduating because the person just throws the spanners in the works, makes it impossible for the other one to proceed. For instance, I gave the example of somebody who lets you proceed from chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, then all of a sudden hits you in the face with a statement that you must redo everything. How do you redo months and months of work? What do you do with the work that you have produced? So, in other words, the supervisor must be frank with you from the onset. If your chapter 1 is not up to scratch, you must not proceed before it, beyond it. By the time he or she says you could go to chapter 2, it should be that she is satisfied with the quality. Then she says, okay, go ahead to the next step, and so on and so forth. So, in summary, let me say there are quite a number of issues that you must think about as you undertake studies, postgraduate studies. Take stock of yourself, do introspection, evaluate yourself, ask yourself the question, will I manage to do this? Will I have the time for it? Do I have the finances for it? Do I have the ability, the acumen, and everything? Having done that, think carefully about the area that you want to study, because you are going to spend months, if not years, daily thinking about that area. So it might just have to be an area that's of interest to you. And think also about whether it is going to be of any value to you after you've completed your studies. And then thirdly, think about the institution where you want to enroll. It comes with a supervisor. So the institutions themselves, find institutions that have got good support structures. And then lastly, if you can have your way, identify a supervisor who could be helpful to you, scan through them. And lastly, even if you have found one who is not exactly the type that you would expect or like to work with, remember it is you who needs something from the supervisor. She doesn't need anything from you. He doesn't need it. Of course, he or she is working. She's an employee of the institution. But at the end of the day, it is you who's pursuing that study career. So be very, very careful. Work, cooperate with the supervisor, even if they sometimes try to make it possible. I implore you to be very, very patient so that eventually you get what you want. All right. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast, and ask you to contact me if you need any support on any of the stuff that I spoke about. Remember to inbox me. You know how to get to that. Otherwise, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Bye.